Alrighty, hello there. I've seen wow, I can't talk tonight. I'm exhausted. It's been a long forever. Um, so I've seen an influx lately of questions regarding the single column tie, and this was something that gave me trouble in the past, and I dodged out of developing a basic single column tie because it had failed on me during a performance at Nuit de Court in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, a couple of years ago. So I dodged out of that, and I changed my approach to dealing with single column ties. I don't think that was the right answer, but at that time I was living a lifestyle where my rope needed to do its job, my knots needed to do their job. Um, since then, I've come to terms with a couple different details around the single column tie, and advanced over that. Not saying I'm advanced over that. No, I changed certain things to make it more manageable, less of a sort of risk. At the end of the day, I can just tighten the knot and make sure it behaves itself, but at the end of the night, I wanted to make sure there was no exception here. So I'm going to do a quick video here. This is not so much instructional on how to do the single column tie, but how I've been doing it for the past couple months. And it hasn't failed me, certainly not the way it did in the past. Fuck it, I'll go through a little bit of a series here. So, bear with my cell phone camera. There's my toesies, my beams. Actually, you know what? I'll change to this side because I don't need a backlight. So bear with me with this. Hopefully music is not too loud. I live through music, so I don't apologize for music. I just hope it isn't too loud. Yes, we're going to use some really cheap rope for this. I just got yesterday actually. So, the general single column tie as I was shown. Here, wrapped around. One, two, wrapped around twice. So I don't remember the proper name for this because names are only important for documentation, not implementation. Over, under, in, and out. Wrap it around everything. Wrap it around everything else. Through the cave. Pull tightly. So, at this particular point in time, I have a single column tie. I can load up my leg on this. It does its job. The short answer for this, sometimes if it's too loose, if it's just a bit too loose, it can pull through and become a little bit of a different creature. You can see it here. It creates this sort of conundrum. I hope that's visible. I'm doing this very improv based off of something I just read on FetLife. So it can collapse if it's not pulled in a certain way and tightly. And if there's any sort of crossovers where the rope crosses over itself, that can weaken the entire knot as well. So that's kind of important. So we'll do it all in line. Now, first answer, and you'll see this with like a Kiranaka and certain Japanese bakushi, is that they'll just tighten the bejesus out of the knot and it does its job. Cool beans, right? It seems to do the job. That did fail on me back in NDC, Nuit des Cordes, in 2016. It failed on me with a model from the West Coast that I would like to work with again, but because my single column tie in a box tie failed, it was obviously a problem. It's kind of a statement on behalf of my capability. So basically I didn't tighten it enough in that particular context, and my answer to this was to change what knot I used altogether to something that didn't do that at all. I'll demonstrate the knot that I moved onto, which to date has not failed on me. This is brand new rope, by the way, so it's not really worn in at all, but wrapped around twice. 2. And then I did a sort of trick where the working line here was folded back on itself, and I'd pass the bite over top of that. This is not an instructional video. You can find how to do these knots on Vimeo and YouTube. This is just a sort of progression explaining my approach. Right. So here, I jokingly call this the Triforce of Power. There's a sort of triangular pattern here. So it's like the Triforce of strength, reliance, I don't know. It's the Triforce, man, for us Zelda fans. And this here, it's done its job beautifully. You can even make it more decorative in a certain way, where instead of running the entire bite through, you can run the body of the bite through, and it becomes both a quick release and creates a pretty little bow, right? Oof. And it goes from there. Because of my experience at NDC back in 2016, I had dodged out of the basic single column tie. It's commonly called Honmusubi. Honmusubi is not a tie in itself. It's like saying single column tie. There's a lot of single column ties. It's a category of ties. Basically, because that particular knot that I've seen 100 times done failed on me in a sort of exhibition, I was like, okay, well, I need something that won't do that regardless of skill. And so I varied into that second tie that second knot I just demonstrated. Now I picked up something from S&M and a couple other parties actually, where the Honmusubi, or the single column tie in the conventional way, was an extra little sort of oomph to it. How's this already 7 minutes long? Goddamn. I'm hitting myself too. So, what I would do here is the conventional single column tie that we all know and love, not Somerville bowline, not any of that sort of stuff, but just 2 wraps around, bite passes over the working end and under everything, ear. You can see people like Akira Knock, Wild Ties, those sorts of guys, they do this sort of knot. Now, one of the other things they did is, the weakness of this knot is that when it's pulled against the knot, it can pull the rest of the stuff through the bindings here, loosen, and become a cinching knot. So, what I've seen happen a few times is that there'd be an extra loop created on the working end, wrapped around the bite, and pulled around that. That part isn't pulled tight, but when the working end is pulled away from the knot, here, now the bite is pushed downwards, so it's got an extra fold to it, and it locks things on another vector. And the working end is now perpendicular away from the single column tie. So if we're uplining from this, it's no longer pulling or working against the knot, it's actually kind of reinforcing it. So there's not a lot to see here, but basically another wrap around the single column tie. Alright. I found that to be pretty friggin' spiffy, and it has been my go-to. So it's basically the conventional single column tie that we see in like S&M's videos, demonstrations we can see in Akira Naka's work, and Wild Ties' Ricardo's work. The results have been, for me, rather successful. It doesn't make the knot especially bulky. It does change the angle of the rope coming away from the knot, which I like, and that's that's actually been a sort of game changer in its own right. So, for people that were asking around about improving their single column time, this is something I've personally adapted recently, and this is within me working almost exclusively in the year of 2019 on Yukimura ties. So I've been willing to deviate from that sort of thing, and the results have again been reliable. Sorry that this wasn't properly done on my camera, but I wanted to be able to move the camera around, or move my cell phone around to demonstrate this sort of thing. This has been my experience. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning now, so I'm exhausted. It's been a full day, and at this point it's starting to show in my voice. But that's been my experience with the single column tie in a nutshell, and how I've seen others improve on it, and I've adopted it myself. So I hope that's useful for you guys. If not, well, c'est la vie. There's as many paths as there are pilgrims, isn't there? I can't even talk anymore. I'm going to bed. Good night, guys.